The first thing that comes to mind when we think of Darth Vader is usually the right-hand man of a ruthless dictator, a warlord who ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, or a traitor who destroyed the Jedi Order. But to look at the story only through this lens is to miss the opportunity to question his tragedy and whether he was right. How did Anakin Skywalker, once one of the brightest hopes of the Jedi Order, become Darth Vader, the most feared figure in the galaxy? Was it his own weaknesses that pushed him to the dark side? Or was it the strict rules of the Jedi Order and the rotten structure of the Republic? Please don't forget to like and subscribe before we begin. Every tragedy has a beginning, and the story of Darth Vader is shaped as a tragedy. He did not turn to the dark side for power. It was a system that used his fears, his losses, and his anger at injustice to shape him. When Anakin Skywalker joined the Jedi Order as a child, he was taught to suppress his emotions, to obey instead of love, and to ignore his fears. But he was not a machine. He was a living human being. Unlike Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi ignored this reality when training Anakin. Anakin's fears, especially the fear of losing loved ones, had to be made sense of rather than suppressed. But the Jedi Order waged a war against emotion. In the end, what he feared came true. When Anakin lost his mother, the strict discipline of the Jedi told him only, "You must not suffer." But that pain turned into anger. Later, when he had visions of losing his wife Padme in the future, he fell into a similar despair. The Jedi Order offered him no help, but rather told him to accept his fate. But can you accept doing nothing when you know someone you love is going to die? This is where Palpatine stepped in. He did what the Jedi wouldn't do. He saw Anakin's fears, offered him a way to be strong, and perhaps most importantly, he gave him a choice. Anakin chose to believe in someone who, unlike the Jedi, offered to embrace his emotions. But was that choice truly his? Or did the Jedi Order and the rotten structure of the Republic push him in that direction? The birth of Darth Vader was not just the fall of a man, but the failure of a system. In the Star Wars universe, the Jedi are often portrayed as peacekeepers, representatives of wisdom and enlightenment. But scratch beneath the surface and we can see just how rigid, bigoted, and at times even hypocritical the Jedi Order actually was. Did the Jedi really represent the absolute goodness of the universe? Or were they an unchanging cult, blind to their own dogma? The Jedi philosophy stipulated the suppression of emotions and the complete eradication of individuality. No loyalty, no love, no fear. But does one have to be free of all emotions in order to truly live? Isn't love not a weakness, but one of the strongest motivators? The Jedi, however, saw any form of emotion as a weakness and advised their disciples to suppress them completely. But repressed emotions do not disappear. They only grow and become a bomb ready to explode. Anakin's story proves exactly that. And let's not stop there. The Jedi were firmly rooted in the political system of the Galactic Republic. Although they described themselves as peacekeepers, at some point they ignored the corruption of the system and became part of the war. As generals, they led clone troops, became part of the chain of command, and became a party to a war. But how can an order that is supposed to remain neutral become directly involved in war? This is where Darth Vader's ideology becomes important. He saw the Jedi for what they really were, people who were captive to blind discipline and a mindset closed to change. That's why destroying the Jedi was for him not just an act of revenge, but an act of purification. He acted to bring order and end the chaos in the universe. Perhaps what we are missing is that he was not just a dictator, but a revolutionary in his own right. So we have to ask the question, was Darth Vader really wrong? Or was he trying to build a stronger and more stable system to replace the rotten one represented by the Jedi? We have talked about the failures of the Jedi Order, but there is also a political dimension. Darth Vader didn't just fight against the Jedi, he fought to destroy the Galactic Republic. Because according to him, the Republic was corrupt, ineffective, and unable to protect the galaxy. But was the Empire really worse than the Republic? Or was it actually impossible to maintain order without a strong authority? At first glance, the Galactic Republic appeared to be a democratic government, But in reality, it was a system mired in bureaucracy, where rich planets exploited the poor and corruption was rampant. Senators were bribed to make decisions. The will of the people existed on paper, but was ignored in reality. Events such as the Naboo Crisis, the Separatist movement, and the Clone Wars exposed the Republic's weakness and administrative incompetence. Even the Jedi could not prevent the collapse of this system. The Empire was different. Although it was based on Sith philosophy, it was strict and harsh in its governance. The order Palpatine established was authoritarian, but effective to a point. The Separatists were eliminated. A centralized government was brought to the galaxy, and chaos ended. Darth Vader was the greatest defender of this order because he believed that without strong leadership, there could be no true peace. From his point of view, freedom was an illusion and order could only be maintained through fear and discipline. But here, a dilemma arises. Does a strong authority really bring peace, or is it just another name for oppression? Empire brought order, but at a heavy price. Repressive rule, the loss of individual freedoms, the brutal silencing of dissent. But was the galaxy already free under the Republic? Or did only those in power win then too? As Darth Vader fought for a strong order, did he become a tyrant or a leader correcting a chaotic system? The answer to this question depends on how you look at whether authority or freedom is more important. Darth Vader's actions are often described as brutal and cruel, raiding the Jedi Temple and killing children, using harsh methods to crush rebellion and terrorizing the galaxy in the name of the Empire, make him seem like one of history's greatest villains. But if we take a step back and look at things from a different perspective, we might question whether his decisions were truly evil. First, let's take the attack on the Jedi Temple. The Jedi Order claimed to bring peace and justice to the galaxy, but in fact they had created a kind of aristocracy. The Jedi saw themselves as superior to the commoners, clinging to the corrupt system of the Galactic Republic. Anakin felt that the Jedi would never change, and that their very existence threatened the Sith Order. His loyalty to Palpatine led him to this purge. Was it a cruel decision? Yes, it was. But if he hadn't actually wiped out the Jedi Order, they might have resurrected and sparked an even bigger war. Also, Vader's oppressive methods have been criticized. But are harsh measures sometimes necessary to maintain authority? Many leaders in history have imposed strict rules in order to make big changes and have been successful for a while. It was no different for Vader. He was trying to put down the rebellion so that the galaxy would not once again descend into civil war and chaos. But when is it justifiable to be authoritarian in order to maintain order? With all this in mind, isn't it simplistic to characterize Darth Vader simply as a tyrant and a murderer? Did he really serve evil, or was he just a man trying to save the galaxy in his own way? While Darth Vader seems to have been transformed into a monster by the choices he made throughout his life, his story has not only been shaped by fear and authority. His journey is also defined by inner conflicts, regrets, and, most importantly, the sacrifices he ultimately made. But did he really find redemption at the end of his life? Or was it too late to pay for everything he had done? Vader thought he was bringing order to the galaxy, but even when he realized that order was maintained through fear and oppression, he thought there was no turning back, until his son Luke Skywalker stood in his way. Luke believed in the good in his father and showed him there was a different way. And at the most critical moment, Vader took the Imperial Order into his own hands by killing the Emperor he had served for so many years. This act not only saved his son, but also brought back Anakin Skywalker, whom he had suppressed for years. But there is an interesting question here. Can Darth Vader atone for all his past actions with this act of kindness in the last moment of his life? Can a man who caused the deaths of thousands of people, who ruled the galaxy as a tyrant, be exonerated by a last-minute sacrifice? Or does his story show that sometimes our mistakes are irredeemable, but that it is still important to choose right? Darth Vader's story is too deep to be told with a simple line between good and evil. He surrendered to darkness to protect the people he loved, resorted to fear to restore order, and ultimately sacrificed everything to save the one he loved most. Was he a hero or a villain? Was he really in the wrong, or just someone who used the wrong methods? Perhaps the biggest lesson is this: being right doesn't always mean you are on the right path. Darth Vader was right about some things. The Jedi Order was corrupt, the Republic had failed, and strong leadership was needed. But the steps he took to do what was right made him a tyrant, not a savior. And that is perhaps the greatest tragedy of all. Being right sometimes brings not absolute victory, but the greatest downfall.